Good afternoon. Welcome to our show, brought to you by our producer Nita Hunter, RG Radio Girl Productions. Thank you, Kemper Center, for the use of this wonderful space, and to Kenosha Community Media for recording our presentation. I'm Jody Diederich, and I am so excited to have directed such an amazing cast and worked with such a talented sound and sound effects crew. I can't wait to see their performance today. Though first, to warm you up this evening is Doug Despin. He will read The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. Following his reading, it will be our pleasure to spook up this Halloween's Eve with a presentation of Bram Stoker's Dracula. Enjoy the show.
Your Honor, I was told I could read this deposition. Yes, Your Honor. True, nervous, very, very dreadfully nervous I had been, and am. But why would you say that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Oh, above all was my sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. How then am I mad? Hearken and observe how healthily, how stealthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain, but once conceived, it haunted me day and night. Object, there was none. Passion, there was none. I loved the old man. I had never wronged me. He had never given me insult. Well, for his gold, I had no desire. I think it was his eye. It was this. One of his eyes resembled that of a vulture, a pale blue eye with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold, and so by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man and thus rid myself of the eye forever. Now, this is the point. You fancy me mad. Madmen know nothing. But you should have seen me. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded, with what caution, with what foresight, with what dissimulation I went to work. I was never kinder to the old man than during the whole week before I killed him. And every night, about midnight, I turned the latch of his door and opened it, oh so gently. And then, when I'd made an opening sufficient for my head, I put in the dark lantern, all closed so that no light shone out. And then I thrust my head in. Oh, you would have laughed to see how cunningly I thrust it in. I moved it slowly, very, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. It took me an hour to place my whole head within the opening of as far as that I could see him as he lay upon his head. Would a madman have been so wise as this? And then, when my head was well in the room, I undid the lantern cautiously, oh, so cautiously. Cautiously, for the hinges creaked. I undid it just so much that a single thin ray fell upon the vulture eye. And this I did for 7 long nights, every night just at midnight. But I found the eye always closed, and so it was impossible to do the work. For it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. And every morning when the day broke, I went boldly into the chamber and spoke courageously to him, calling him by name in a hearty tone and inquiring how he had passed the night. So you see, he would have been a very profound old man indeed to suspect that every night just at 12, I looked in upon him while he slept. Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. A watchman's minute hand moves more quickly than did mine. Never before that night had I felt the extent of my own powers, of my sagacity. I could scarcely contain my feelings of triumph to think that there I was, opening the door little by little, and he not to dream of my secret deeds or thoughts. I fairly chuckled at the idea. And perhaps he heard me, for he moved on the bed suddenly as if startled. Now, you may think that I drew back, but no. His room was as black as pitch, with a black darkness, for the shutters were closed fastened through fear of robbers. And so I knew that he could not see the opening of the door. And I kept pushing it on, steadily, steadily. I had my head in and was about to open the lantern when my thumb slipped upon the tin fastening. The old man sprang up in the bed, crying out, "Who's there?" I kept still and said nothing. For a whole hour, I did not move a muscle, and in the meantime, I did not hear him lie down. He was still sitting up in the bed listening, just as I have done, night after night, hearkening to the death watches in the wall. Presently, I heard a slight groan, and I knew it was the groan of mortal terror. It was not a groan of pain or of grief. Oh, no. It was the low, stifled sound that arises from the bottom of the soul when overcharged with awe. I knew the sound well. Many a night just at midnight when all the world slept, it has welled up from my own bosom, deepening with its dreadful echo the terrors that distracted me. I say I knew it well. I knew what the old man felt and pitied him. Although I chuckled at heart, I knew that he had been lying awake ever since the first slight noise when he had turned in his bed. His fears had been ever since growing upon him. He'd been trying to fancy them causeless, but could not. He had been saying to himself, "It is nothing but the wind in the chimney. It is only a mouse crossing the floor," or "It is merely a cricket which has made a single chirp." Yes, he has been trying to comfort himself with these suppositions, but had found all in vain. All in vain, because death, in approaching him, had stalked with his black shadow before him and enveloped the victim. And it was the mournful influence of the unperceived shadow that caused him to feel, although he neither saw nor heard, to feel the presence of my head within his room. When I had waited a long time, very patiently, without hearing him lie down, I resolved to open a little, very, very little crevice in the lantern. So I opened it. You cannot imagine how stealthily, until at length, a single dim ray, like the thread of the spider, shot from out the crevice and full upon the vulture eye. It was open, wide open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw it with perfect distinctiveness, all a dull blue with a hideous veil over it that chilled the very marrow in my bones. But I could see nothing else of the old man's face or person, for I had directed that ray, as if by instinct, precisely on the damned spot. Then have I now told you that what you mistake for madness is but over-acuteness of the senses? Now I say, there came to my ears a low, dull, quick sound, such as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. Boom, 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 boom. I knew that sound well, too. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury as the beating of a drum stimulates a soldier into courage. But even yet I refrained and kept still. I scarcely breathed. I held the lantern motionless. I tried how steadily I could maintain the ray upon the eye. Meantime, the hellish tattoo of the heart increased. It grew quicker and quicker and louder every instant. The old man's terror must have been extreme. It grew louder, I say, louder every moment. Do you mark me well? Have I not told you that I'm nervous? So I am. And now, at the dead hour of the night, amid the dreadful silence of that old house, so strange a noise as this excited me to uncontrollable terror. Yet for some minutes longer I refrained and stood still. But the beating grew louder and louder. I thought the heart must burst. And now a new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor. The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell, I threw open the lantern and leaped into the room. He shrieked once, only once. In an instant, I dragged him to the floor and pulled the heavy bed over him. I then smiled gaily to find the deed so far done. But for many minutes, the heart beat on with a muffled sound. This, however, did not vex me. It would not be heard through the wall. At length it ceased. The old man was dead. I removed the bed and examined the corpse. Yes, he was stone dead. I placed my hand upon the heart and held it there many minutes. There was no pulsation. He was stone dead. His eye would trouble me no more. If still you think me mad, you will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body. The night waned, and I worked hastily, but in silence. First of all, I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the head and the arms and the legs. I then took up 3 planks from the flooring of the chamber and deposited all between the scantlings. I then replaced the boards so cleverly, so cunningly that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. There was nothing to wash out, no stain of any kind, no blood spot, whatever. I had been too wary for that. A tub had caught all. When I had made an end of these labors, it was 4 o'clock, still dark as midnight, and the bell sounded the hour. And as it tolled, came a knocking at the street door. I went down to open it with a light heart, for, what had I now to fear? There entered 3 men who introduced themselves with perfect suavacity as soldiers of the police. A shriek had been heard by a neighbor during the night. Suspicion of foul play had been aroused. Information had been lodged at the police office, and they, the officers, had been deputed to search the premises. I smiled. For what had I to fear? I bade the gentleman welcome. The shriek, I said, was my own in a dream. The old man, I mentioned, was absent in the country. I took my visitors all over the house. I bade them search well. I led them at length to his chamber. I showed them his treasures, secure, undisturbed. In the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought chairs into the room and I desired them here to rest from their fatigues, while I myself, in the wild audacity of my perfect triumph, placed my own seat upon the very spot which reposed the corpse of the victim. The officers were satisfied. My manner had convinced them. I was singularly at ease. They sat, and while I answered cheerily, they chatted out familiar things. But ere long, I felt myself getting pale and wished them gone. My head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ears, but still they sat and still they chatted. The ringing became more distinct. It continued and became more distinct. I talked more frequently and freely to get rid of the feeling, but it continued and gained definitiveness until at length I found that the noise was not within my ears. No doubt now I grew very pale, but I talked more fluently and with a heightened voice, yet the sound increased, and what could I do? It was a low, dull, quick sound, much such a sound as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I gasped for breath, and yet the officers heard it not. But I talked more quickly, more vehemently, but the noise steadily increased. I arose and argued about trifles in a high pitch and with violent gesticulations, but the noise just steadily increased. Why would they not be gone? I paced the floor to and fro with heavy strides, as if excited to fury by the observation of the men. But the noise steadily increased. Oh, God, what could I do? I foamed, I raved, I swore, I swung the chair upon which I had been sitting and grated it upon the boards. But the noise arose over all and continuously increased. It grew louder and louder and louder. But the noise arose over all and continually increased, louder and louder. And still the men chatted pleasantly and smiled. Was it possible they heard not? Almighty God, no, they heard, they suspected, they knew. They were making a mockery of my horror. This I thought, and this I think. But anything was better than this agony. Anything was more tolerable than this derision. I could bear those hypocritical smiles no longer. I felt that I must scream or die. And now, again, louder, hark, louder, louder, louder. Villains, I shrieked. Dissemble no more. I admit the deed. Tear up the planks. Here, here. It is the beating of his hideous heart.
My amazing cast and crew.
Mercury Theater on the air presents Orson Welles as Count Dracula in his own version of Bram Stoker's great novel, Dracula.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Arthur Seward. I am here tonight to bear witness to the truth of certain events which you may find it hard to believe, but I ask you to believe them. I have certain documents, telegrams, clippings from the press of the day, memoranda and letters in various hands. All needless matters have been eliminated. Through the history, almost at variance with the possibilities of contemporary belief, they stand forth as simple fact. I present you first with excerpts from the private journal of Jonathan Harker.
I, Jonathan Harker, lawyer's clerk, articles to Peter Hawkins, Esquire, of Exeter, England, am writing this journal in the hope that if misfortune overtakes me, it may one day come to the eyes of those who love me. I set out from London on the last day of April to visit one of our clients in Eastern Europe. On May the 3rd, I arrived in Budapest and came after nightfall to Klausenburg on the border of Transylvania. At Bistris, there was a letter of welcome for me from our client, informing me that his carriage would await me at the Borgo Pass. It was signed, Dracula.
coach for Bukovina.
The road was rough, but still we seemed to fly over it with feverish haste. When it grew dark, there seemed to be some excitement among the passengers. They kept speaking to the driver and looking at me and urging him on with a greater speed. The crazy coach rocks from the great leather springs. The mountains seem to come nearer to us on either side. Coachman, what is it? Where are we?
You are nearing your destination, young heir. This is the Borgo Pass.
There are black, rolling clouds overhead, and in the air, the heavy, oppressive sense of thunder. Now, we go through the pass.
The young heir is not expected after all.
You are early tonight, my friend.
A calash with 4 horses had drawn up beside us.
Let me help you, sir.
The coachman smiled, and the lamplight fell on a hard-looking mouth with berry red lips and sharp-looking teeth as white as ivory. We began to move. I looked back. The coach with its load of passengers had vanished from sight. We swept into the darkness of the pass. I struck a match. It was within a few minutes of midnight. Then a dog began to howl somewhere far down the road. The wind was rising, moaning and whistling through the rocks, and the branches of the trees crashed together as we swept along. It grew colder and colder still, and fine powdery snow began to fall. The baying of the wolves sounded nearer and nearer, as if they were closing round on us from every side. We kept on ascending, always ascending. The howling of the wolves was growing less. Presently, it ceased altogether. And just then the moon broke through the black clouds, and by its light, I saw round us a ring of wolves running alongside the carriage in silence, with white teeth and lolling red tongues, with long, sinewy limbs and shaggy hair.
Welcome to my house.
I must have fallen asleep. The carriage had pulled up in the courtyard of a vast, ruined castle. The coachman was nowhere to be seen.
Welcome to my house. Come freely, go safely, and leave something of the happiness you bring.
Count Dracula?
I am Dracula.
The face was strong, very strong, aquiline. The mouth, so far as I could see it under the heavy mustache, was fixed and rather cruel looking, with sharp white teeth.
You hear them, Mr. Harker?
The wolves?
The children of the night. As you say, Mr. Harker, the wolves. Listen. Come now. There are many things you must tell me tomorrow. Of England, and of the estate that you have purchased for me.
Well, yes.
The estate is called Carfax, I believe.
Yes, that's so.
But now I will detain you no longer. You will find your room in readiness, and I advise you not to leave it during the night.
This castle is on the very edge of a terrible precipice. A stone falling from the window would fall 1,000 feet without touching anything. I explored. There are doors everywhere, all of them locked. The door to the Great Hall, the door to the courtyard. Every door in the castle is closed, bolted against me. Castle Dracula is a prison, and I am a prisoner. The next night, I could not sleep. So after a few hours, I got up and, lighting my candle, I placed my shaving mirror on the dressing table and was just beginning to shave when
You feel rested, Mr. Harker?
I had not seen him. Although the reflection of the glass covered the whole room behind me, I turned to the glass again. Count Dracula was so close to me. I could see him over my shoulder, but there was no reflection of him in the mirror. It was blank. I started, and I cut myself on the side of the throat. The blood was trickling down my neck. My mirror!
The blood! The blood! Wipe the blood from your face, Mr. Harker, and take care how you cut yourself. It is more dangerous than you think in this country.
When I awoke, I found most of my things were gone. My passport, my notes, my letter of credit. I could find no trace of them anywhere. And my door was locked from the outside. June 20th. There is curious work of some kind going on in the castle. Now and then I hear the faraway muffled sound of mattock and spade. And last night, the second of 3 dated letters which Dracula made me write, the second of that series was to blot out the very traces of my existence. From the earth went forth. Count Dracula.
Yes, my young friend.
Well, what of me? When am I free? When can I leave this place?
Free, Mr. Harker? You are always free. You want to leave. Would you like to leave tonight?
Yes, in God's name.
My dear young friend, not an hour shall you wait in my house against your will. Come, follow me. Your door seems to be bolted. How strange. Your door is locked.
Well, in God's name, open it.
As you will, Mr. Harker. You English have a proverb which is very close to my heart. Welcome the coming, speed the parting exit. Good night, Mr. Harker.
Shut the door! Shut the door, I tell you! Just shut the door!
The door is shut, Mr. Harker. I take it you will remain.
Morning, June the 30th. These may be the last words I ever write in this diary. God preserve my sanity. I have never seen Count Dracula by the day. At sunrise, at the first cockcrow, he is gone. I don't understand these things. I only know that the wolves are baying, and that he is a man with hair on the palms of his hand, with sharp teeth and no blood in his face. He casts no shadow. He cannot be seen in a glass, and he moves like a bat across the sheer face of the castle walls. He eats no food and is mortally afraid of the crucifix. As I write this, I hear in the courtyard the rolling of heavy wheels and cracking of whips. And there, in a passage below, a pounding of heavy boxes being set down, boxes shaped like coffins. And I know what they hold. The boxes are filled with holy earth from the chapel beneath the castle. The last box is being nailed down. And now I hear the heavy feet tramping again. The door is shut and the chains rattle. In the courtyard and down the rocky way, the roll of heavy wheels, the cracks of whips. Help! 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 The wagons are gone. I'm alone in the castle. I'm alone in the castle. I'm alone in the castle. I'm alone. I'm alone.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dr. Seward. Mr. Harker's journal terminates at this point. I now present into evidence a clipping dated August of that year from the Yorkshire Telegraph from my correspondence in Whitby. One of the greatest and sudden of storms on record was experienced here today. The weather had been somewhat sultry, but Saturday evening was fine. The band was playing, the piers were crowded with holidaymakers. The winds went away entirely in the evening, and there was a dead calm. There were but few lights at sea. The only sail noticeable was a foreign schooner under full canvas that was seemingly going westward. A little after midnight came a strange sound from over the sea, and high overhead the air began to carry a strange, faint, hollow booming. Then, without warning, the tempest broke. And there, with all sails set, was the foreign schooner, rushing with terrific speed towards the shore. A searchlight was turned on her, and there, lashed to the helm, was a corpse. With drooping head, which swayed horribly to and fro, each motion of the ship. A moment later, she crashed. Then a strange thing was seen. At the very instant she touched, a huge dog sprang up on deck from below and, running forward, jumped from the bow onto the sand and, making straight up the east cliff toward the graveyard, vanished into the night. The Coast Guard, going abroad at dawn, found the dead man fastened to a spoke of the wheel. Tightly clutched in one hand was a crucifix. The man must have been dead for quite 2 days. In the pocket of the dead man's coat was found a bottle, carefully corked, containing a roll of paper. This proved to be an addendum to the ship's log. There was found on board only a small amount of cargo, and that of a most unusual nature. Apparently, the ship carried nothing but earth, common earth, packed away in wooden boxes, shaped much like coffins.
Log of the Demeter, Russian flag, Black Sea to Whitby, July 6th. Finished taking in cargo, a queer cargo, boxes of earth. At noon set sail, east wind, fresh. Crew, 4 hands, 2 mates, cook and myself, captain. July 11th. Entered Bosporus. At dark, passed through Dardanelles. Mate reported in morning that one of the crew, Vilden, was missing.
Took law aboard, watch 8 bells last night. He was relieved by Tilician, who never came to his bunk. There is something aboard this ship. No, don't laugh, Captain. In the rain last night, a tall, thin man go up the companionway and along the deck forward and disappear. When I go to the bow, no one, and the hatchways were all closed.
July 22nd. Rough weather, last 3 days. All hands busy with sails. No time to be frightened. Past Gibraltar and out through straits. All well. July 24th. Last night. Another hand was lost. Disappeared.
Like Tilician, he come off his watch at midnight, and we never see him again.
You take your watch now.
I don't take watch alone no more.
Nor I.
No more double watch.
Double watch.
July 29th. Had single watch tonight, as crew too tired to double. When morning come, we...
Hey, Balaki, below. Balaki, where's the guns?
Balaki gone like the others.
Like all the others?
The mate and I have agreed to go armed henceforth. July 30th, last night, we are nearing England. Weather fine, all sails set.
Captain, the men on watch are missing, more missing.
Now, only self and mate and one hand left to work ship. August 3rd, 2 days of fog and not a sail sighted. At midnight, I went to relieve the man at wheel, and when I got to it, I found no one there.
It's here. I know it now. I saw it. Like a man, taller and thin, ghastly pale. It was in the bows and looking out. I gave it my knife, but the knife went right through it, empty as the air.
What are you talking about?
It's here, and I'll find it. It's in the hold, in one of those boxes of earth. I'll screw them one by one and see. And see!
He is mad. Stark raving mad. It's no use my trying to stop him. He can't hurt those big boxes. They're invoiced as common earth.
He's there! There down in the hole. I know that secret now. The sea will save me from him. It's all that's left. It's all that's left.
August 4th. I am all alone on ship, in still the fog. I dare not go below. I dare not leave the helm, so here all night I stayed. And in the dimness of the night, I saw him. God forgive me, but the mate was right to jump overboard. It was better to die like a sailor in the blue water. But I am captain, and I must not leave my ship. I have tied my hands to the wheel when my strength begins to fail, and along with them I shall tie that which it dare not touch, my crucifix. I am growing weaker, and the night is coming on. God and the Blessed Virgin help a poor, ignorant soul just trying to do his duty.
Telegram. Seward, Perfleet to Van Helsing, Amsterdam. Lucy Westenra in alarming condition. Cannot diagnose. Come at once. Seward.
Telegram, Van Helsing, Amsterdam to Seward, Perfleet. I am on my way to see you. Please arrange for me to examine your patient immediately upon my arrival. Van Helsing.
Ladies and gentlemen, I shall now explain that 6 months ago, before the events recorded here, I had become engaged to a young lady, Lucy Westenra. We were to be married in the spring. My old teacher, Professor Van Helsing, arrived at 4 the next afternoon. I took him at once to Lucy's house. She lay in her bed, asleep. She was ghastly, chalky pale. The red had seemed to have gone even from her lips and gums, and the bones of her face stood out.
Young Missy's bad, very bad. She must have blood, or she will die. She is not anemic. The qualitative analysis of her blood is quite normal condition. It is strange. I do not like to think how strange. Oh, look, mind God, her throat, look.
The black velvet band that she always wore dragged up a little and showed a red mark on her throat. Just over the external jugular vein were 2 punctured. Not large, but not wholesome looking. The edges were white and worn looking. Well, what is it, Professor? What's wrong with her? Speak frankly. You can tell me the worst.
I wish I could, Seward. I wish I could, but I do not dare.
But won't you tell me anything?
I will tell you this. Your young lady is in a danger greater than death. Oh, you must believe me. If you leave her for one moment and harm befalls, you will not sleep easy thereafter.
September 8th. I sat up all night with Lucy.
Arthur, I'm afraid.
My dear, you can sleep tonight. I'm here watching you. Nothing can happen. And I promise, at any sign of bad dreams, if I see anything, I'll wake you at once.
Will you? Will you really then? Then I'll sleep.
I sat all night by her bedside. She did not wake once during the night, although the boughs or a bat or something slapped almost angrily against the window pane. September 11th, still quoting from my private journals. This time I received a message from Purfleet. It read, 10:20 p.m., St. John's Hospital. Serious complications, case 891. Your immediate presence in London imperative. I had no choice. Sometime later, a paper was found among Lucy Westenra's belongings.
I write this and leave it to be seen so that no one may get into trouble from me. I went to bed that night as usual, taking care that the window was closed as Dr. Van Helsing had directed. About 2 a.m, I awakened. I went to the door and called out, "Arthur! Arthur?" There was no answer. Something's broken the window. I'm in the room alone. I dare not go out. The house seems to be empty. The air full of specks, floating, circling in the draft from the window. The light burns blue, dim. What am I to do? Something very sweet and very bitter all around me, like I'm sinking into deep water. They're singing in my ears.
You shall be flesh of my flesh, blood of my blood.
September 12th, late. Only resolution and habit can let me make an entry tonight. We found her sprawled on the floor, and there was a draft in the room from the broken window. The throat was bare, showing the 2 wounds looking horribly white and mangled.
We are too late, my friend. We have failed. God's will be done.
She is dying.
Yes, she's dying. Stay beside her. It will make much difference, mark me, whether she dies conscious or in her sleep.
It was late in the afternoon before she opened her eyes.
Arthur? Oh, my love, I'm so glad you've come.
I took her hand and knelt beside her. Her breath came and went like a tired, peaceful child. And then the light from the setting sun fell on her face, and then, insensibly, a strange came over her. Her eyes grew suddenly dull and hard. Her breath was heavy. Her mouth opened, and the pale gums, drawn back, made the teeth look large and sharp.
Arthur? Ah, my love, I'm so glad you've come. Kiss me. Bend down and kiss me.
Run for your life, Seward! Run for your living soul and hers!
Lucy!
She's dead.
Poor girl. Lie in peace at last. The end.
Not so. It is only the beginning. Wait and see.
Extra special Kensington Aura.
Westminster Gazette, September 25th. A Hampstead mystery, The Kensington Horror, and The Woman in Black are vividly recalled to mind by a series of events that have taken place recently in the neighborhood of Hampstead. Several cases have occurred of young children straying from home or failing to return from playing on the heath. In all these cases, the children have given as their excuse that they have been with a beautiful lady who offered them chocolates. In each case, the child was found to be slightly torn or wounded in the throat. The wound seems such as might be made by a rat,
Extra special,
or a small dog.
extra special, extra special. Umstead Ora. Read about the beautiful lady. Read about the beautiful lady. Extra special.
The Hampstead Horror. Another child injured by the beautiful lady. We have just received intelligence that another child missed last night was only discovered late in the morning. It has the same tiny wound in the throat. Well, Sword, what do you think of that, huh? You mean to tell me, my friend, that you still have no suspicions as to what befell poor Lucy?
Nervous prostration following on great loss or waste of blood.
And how was the blood lost or wasted? You are a clever man, my friend, and a good doctor, but you do not believe that there are things that you cannot understand. You are wrong, Sword. Are you aware of all the mysteries of life and death? Can you tell me why in the pampas there are bats that come at night and opens the veins of cattle and horses and suck dry those veins? How on some islands of the western seas there are bats which hang on trees all day, and then when the sailors sleep on deck because it is so hot, sweep down on them. And then in the morning are found dead men, as white as Miss Lucy was.
I understand none of these things.
After tonight's Sword, if you dare come with me, perhaps then you will understand.
September 29th, before dawn. Now it is done. And I would sooner die 1,000 deaths than to live again what I did this night.
We will spend the night, you and I, here in this churchyard where Miss Lucy is buried. We enter the tomb,
And then?
We opens the coffin. You shall yet be convinced
Take
that
care, Van Helsing.
Miss Lucy is dead, is it not so? Then there can be no wrong to her. But if she is not dead...
With some difficulty, we found the Westenra tomb. I took up my place behind a yew tree on one side of the tomb, Van Helsing on the other. I was chilled and frightened. Suddenly, I saw something moving between two yew trees, a dim, white figure which held something at its breast. The figure stopped. I could not see the face, for it was bent down over what I saw to be a fair-haired child. There was a sharp little cry, such as a child gives in sleep, or a dog, as it lies before the fire in dreams. Then the thing saw us. She drew back with an angry snarl. Her lovely, blood-stained mouth grew to an open square. If ever a face meant death, I saw it at that moment. Then suddenly, she turned and vanished in the direction of the tomb.
The child is unharmed. We leave him in a safe place where the police can find him. There is more to do. Come.
Now, we're in the tomb. There in the coffin, the thing lay. Like a nightmare of Lucy, the pointed teeth, the blood-stained mouth. Van Helsing never looked up. From his bag, he took out a book, his operating knife, a heavy hammer, and a round wooden stake, 2 or 3 inches thick, sharpened to a fine point and hardened over a fire.
Seward, the life of this unhappy woman has just begun. Then she becomes what you call undead. There comes with the change the curse of immortality. She cannot die, but must go on, age after age, adding new victims, because all that die from the preying of the undead become themselves undead and prey upon others. So, if this lady, this undead, be made to rest as true dead, then the soul of the poor lady whom we love should again be free.
Tell me, what am I to do?
Take the stake in your left hand, the hammer in your right.
Yes.
Place the point over the heart.
Here.
Yes, then as I begin the prayer for the dead, in God's name strike. Are you ready? Now, Domini des Eprieste,
On the morning of July 11th, a man was found on the border of Transylvania. He talked wildly of wolves and boxes of earth and blood. He gave his name as Jonathan Harker. In a hospital in Klausenberg, he improved sufficiently to make possible his removal to England. I'm still quoting from my own personal papers, but then his condition remained so serious that he was committed for observation to a private ward in my hospital at Purfleet. Here, he did so well that in 3 weeks, he was completely recovered. It was during this time that his wife, Mina Harker, brought to the attention of Dr. Van Helsing and myself the journal that her husband had kept while the prisoner in the castle of a certain Count Dracula in Transylvania. I have before me the record of a meeting that took place in my study in Purfleet, transcribed by Mina Harker.
October 1st, meeting again, 10 after 8. Jonathan next to me, Dr. Seward afterwards, and Dr. Van Helsing at the head of the table.
My friends, there are such things as vampires. Had I known at first what I now know, one so precious a life would have been spared for the many of us who love her. The vampire, which is among us, is himself so strong that he can direct all the elements, the storms, the fog, the thunder. He can command all the meaner things, the moth, the bat, the owl and the fox, and the wolf. How then are we to begin to strive to destroy him? How shall we find his place? And having found it, how can we destroy? My friends, it is a terrible task that we undertake. To fail here is not mere life or death. If we fail, we become as him, foul things of the night, as him. What do you say?
I answer for myself.
Come near.
I'm with you.
The professor laid a small golden crucifix on the table. We took hands and our solemn pact was made.
My friends, we too are not without strength. The vampire flourishes on the blood of the living. Without this he cannot live. He throws no shadow. He makes no reflection in the mirror. He can transform himself into a wolf or a bat. He can come on moonlight rays as elemental dust. He can see in the dark. He can do all of these things. Yet he is not free. His power ceases at the coming of the day. Then, until night, he must remain in the shape in which he finds himself. And except in his coffin home, in those earth baskets, he cannot rest. We can confine him in his coffin then, my friends, and if we obey what we know, we will destroy him.
At that moment, something slapped wildly against the window. Then...
Did you hit it?
I don't know.
We looked out of the window. Against the black sky, you could see nothing.
That are now positioned from the Count's castle to Transylvania to Whitby came 50 boxes of earth. All of these, to our certain knowledge, were delivered at Carfax. Recently, 12 of these boxes have been removed. First step, ascertain whether all the rest remain in the deserted house next door, or whether any more have been removed. We must break each of these boxes and sterilize the earth with holy water, so we can no longer seek safety in it. And we must hurry.
The events of the next few days are described in Jonathan Harker's journal.
October 2nd, 5 a.m. Just returned from the empty house. Left Mina here at home. Well, we've done our work at Carfax. The place was filthy, the air stagnant and foul, and alive with rats. We counted the boxes, only 38 of them, and over each one, the professor went through his same mysterious work. It was dawn when we got back. I found Mina asleep. She looks paler than usual.
October 2nd. Soon after they left, I fell asleep. I remember hearing the sudden barking of the dogs, and then it was silent. I got up and looked out of the window. There was a thin streak of white mist moving across the grass along the wall of the house. It dawned on me that the air in the room was heavy and dank and cold. The gaslight came only like a tiny red spark in the fog. I could see through my eyelids. The mist grew thicker and thicker. Then, as I looked, the spark divided and seemed to shine on me through the fog like two red eyes.
You shall be flesh of my flesh, blood of my blood, blood of my blood.
October 2nd, 8 p.m. We were on the track. 12 boxes were delivered to an empty house at 337 Piccadilly.
My dear friends, until the sun sets tonight, Dracula must retain whatever form he now has. We have this day to hunt out all of his lairs and sterilize them. Then he will have no place he can move to and hide. But we have only until sunset.
The house in Piccadilly was empty. Like the one at Purfleet, the same sickening smell is in the air. On the table, we found a clothes brush, a brush, and a comb, and a basin, the latter containing dirty water, which was reddened as if with blood.
Come on, the boxes are back here. 8, 9, 10, 11.
Only 11?
There's a 12th box somewhere.
Gentlemen, it is after 6. The sun is setting. We've no time to lose. He will return at any moment. Open the boxes.
Quiet.
Listen. Here it is. It is he.
The window!
You waste your bullets, gentlemen. You think you baffle me? You with your pale faces all in a row, like sheep in a butcher's. You think you have time left without a place to rest. But I have more, and time is on my side. The one you love is mine already. I have known her. Already my mark is on her throat. Flesh of my flesh, blood of my blood. She is with me always over land and sea.
October 4th, morning. Another meeting in the study at Purfleet.
We must find that last remaining box, gentlemen. We must find it. As long as that earth escapes and pure, exists and pure, as long as there remains one place of refuge for Dracula, there is no safety and no peace for any soul in England.
And for the undead, never peace so long as he lives. Blood of my blood, blood of my blood.
Mina!
How do you know that?
Quiet, quiet.
With me always, over land and sea.
Mina, darling, how did you know that Dracula said those words?
I don't know. The words just came. Strange. There are times when I feel that I am with him.
At sunset?
Yes, just as the sun sets, and again at sunrise. Dr. Van Helsing, if I could, if at those times
Have you the courage?
The courage for what? What do you mean?
Dr. Van Helsing here will question me.
I will question her, yes, in a state of hypnosis. The one you love is already mine, he said. She is with me always over land or sea. Ah, Count Dracula, perhaps she will betray you if she is really with you, this one we love. Who knows if she is really with you over land or sea?
Blood of my blood.
Mina.
Yes.
Answer me, Mina. Are you with him?
I am with him.
Where are you?
I do not know. It is all dark.
What do you hear?
The lapping of water. I hear it on the outside.
Then you are on the ship?
Yes.
What else do you hear?
There is a creaking of an anchor chain.
What are you doing?
Still, oh, so still. It is like death. It is like death.
Here is a report from the Matson Peabody, shipbrokers, dated October 5th. According to Lloyd's lists, the only sailing ship that left for the Black Sea yesterday with the Tsarina Katrina, bound for Varna. Somehow, before she sailed, a man came alongside, all in black, driving a cart with a great box in it. This he lifted down, single-handed, and carried below. No one remembers having seen him after that. A heavy mist came up over Doolittle Dock until sailing time. The rest of London Harbor remained completely clear.
Well, our plans are made. The average sailing time from London to the Black Sea is 3 weeks. He can travel overland to the same place in 3 days. We shall be there waiting for him when he arrives.
October 15th. Arrived Varna, about 5 o'clock. Mina feels stronger. Every morning, before sunrise and just before sunset, she speaks to Van Helsing in a trance.
Are you with him, Mina? Tell me, are you with him?
I am with him.
What can you see?
All is dark.
What can you hear?
I can hear the waves lapping against the ship and the water rushing by. The wind is high. I can hear it in the shrouds.
So, the Tsarina Katrina is still at sea, hastily to Varna. The Count cannot cross running water, so he cannot leave the ship without being observed.
What do you hear, Mina?
Lapping waves and rushing water. Darkness, darkness.
A whole week of waiting. Dated telegram from Lloyd.
Not yet reported.
Not yet reported.
Not yet reported.
No.
Rushing water, creeping mist, darkness, darkness and wind.
October 24th. Telegram. Lloyd's, London to Harker. Tsarina Katrina reported this morning from Dardanelles.
Lloyd's, London to Harker, October 28th. Tsarina Katrina in heavy fog. Reported entering Galatz Harbor at 1 o'clock today.
Galatz! Oh, Galatz is 38 hours from here. And the first train leaves for Galatz at 6:30 tomorrow morning. Oh, my friends, we have lost.
I with you. I can see nothing, nothing. I can hear men's voices calling in the roar and the prick of the wind. I can feel the air blowing.
October 29th, evening. We are due between 2 and 3 in the afternoon, but already at Bucharest, we are 3 hours late.
What's going on? I feel something pass me like a cold wind. I can hear far off confused sounds, as of men talking in strange tongues, fierce falling water, and the howling of wolves. There's another sound. How queer a sound, like...
Like what? Speak, Mina, speak. I command you to speak.
Arrived in Galatz, saw the captain of the Tsarina Katrina.
Welcome aboard. We are over an hour before sunup. We will receive a box for a party by the name of Dracula. Had his papers right. Emanuel Hildesheim was his name.
Mr. Hildesheim,
Yes?
you unloaded a box yesterday.
I got from Kialov by order. Kialov.
Mr. Kielov?
Oh, no, sir. This morning they find him dead inside the churchyard of St. Peter. They find him dead with his throat torn open.
October 30th, evening.
There are 2 ways in which Dracula can get back to his own place, by land or by water.
We've examined the map and found the most likely river is the Sarath.
You and I, Seward, will charter steam launch and follow him up the river. Van Helsing and Mina will take a train to Vristi, and from there...
We shall go on in the Dracula Harker went to Bistritsa, over to the Borgo. If you have not caught him before, we shall be meeting Dracula there.
October 31st. We arrive at Voresti at noon. Then Helsing and I bought the carriage here. We start in an hour. Our enemy is still on the river.
October 31st. We can earn good speed up at the river at night. There's plenty of water, and the banks are wide apart.
November 1st, evening. No news all day. We hear that a big boat went up the river before us, going at more than unusual speed.
November 4th. All day driving. The country gets wilder as we go. By morning, we should reach the Borgo Pass.
November the 4th, evening. We have left the launch. We've got horses, and we follow on track along the river. We are armed.
Look, quick! There they are now, heading west.
Through the dawn, we could see the Slovaks, some miles before us, dashing along the river with their wagon. On it was a large box.
Late in the afternoon, we leave the Borgo Pass.
Van Helsing, look!
We could see a long way all around. Far off beyond the white waste of snow, like a black ribbon curling between us and the river, not far off, came a group of men, mounted Slovaks riding along. In the midst of them was a wagon, swept from side to side. On the wagon was a large box.
Look!
We see 2 horses following fast, coming up from the south. Sword and Harker, the Slovaks with their heavy wagons are losing their ground. Now they must be not more than a mile behind. And now the wagon is quite closer. We can see the large box lying gravely. Now they are almost upon us. Now has happened a strange thing. The wagon smashed into a great rock buried in the snow. lost its front wheel and turned over on its side, jammed against the stone. The horses tore loose, and from their traces, and bolted, and the Cossacks and the Slovaks scattered and vanished after them. Then silence. Silence like comes after ringing a bell.
Look, his face!
It is Dracula, sprawled out stiff and twisted in the smear of his own holy earth. The box in falling has emptied the dirt onto the snow. His face is old-looking. The skin is like paper. Dr. Short, there is no time. Look at the sun.
Sunset!
In 1 minute, it is sunset, and he is forever lost to us. Have you your stake of wood and the hammer?
Yes.
Now, steward, pray for us. Kneel down and pray. Harker! The stake of wood, place it over his heart. Be not afraid, Harker. Do not look into his eyes. The hammer now. Harker, strike! Strike!
Flesh, flesh of my flesh, guilt of my guilt, death of my death. Speak and be manifest in the instant of your master's peril. Elements of darkness, rain, evil wind, mist, and mold, and tempest.
Strike!
The others couldn't, but somehow I could hear him speaking behind his eyes.
Claw, wing, tooth, scale, tissue of flesh, death of my death, dead and undead. The hand of the living is over your master. Console me, my children. This instant is no longer than the space between two heartbeats. But the night is not here, and I am lonely. Come to your master, my children. Beguile him now in the instant of his peril. Beguile him with the sound of your names. Claw, wing, tooth, scale, tissue of flesh. Claw, wing, tooth, scale, tissue of my flesh.
Say, Harker, strike, strike!
There is one very dear to me who is not yet answered. My love, Mina, there is less than a minute between me and the night. You must speak for me. You must speak with my heart.
Give them to me, Jonathan. Give them to me. Give me the stick of wood and the hammer.
Harker!
I shall never forget that moment. The look on poor Mina's face as she stood there. The angry scar standing out on her throat. Her eyes like living coals in the last red of the sunset. She had torn the stake and the hammer out of my hands with the strength of an animal.
Mina, do you know what you have done, woman? Do you know what you have done to us? You have released him. The evil is free.
Look, the sun.
As we looked down at Dracula, the eyes saw the sinking sun, and the hate in them turned to triumph.
Flesh of my flesh, come to me, my love. Come into the night and the darkness. You have served me well, my love, my bride, my one.
Ladies and gentlemen, all the evidence is now before you. I've added nothing to the best of my knowledge. I have omitted nothing that might help to throw light upon the extraordinary events of the year 1891, which culminated on that terrible evening in the Borgo Pass. There remains only this one last report.
When Mina Harker seized the stake and the hammer from her husband, I believe she was under some form of hypnosis. She herself remembers nothing. But whatever influence was at work on her, she must at the last moment have rejected it. For the exact instant the sun disappeared, it was Mina Harker who drove the stake through the heart of the thing that called itself Dracula. At that same instant, even as we looked, The wound on the side of her throat was no more. As for Dracula, before the screams of the creature had died from our ears, the whole body crumbled into dust and passed from our sight. In the final moment of the solution, there was in the face a look of peace, such as I never could have imagined. Never could have imagined resting there.
Tonight's production of Dracula by Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater was the first of 9 CBS broadcasts in which the brilliant group will bring us a series of great narratives, all presented at the immediacy of the first person singular, and presenting each Monday night at the same time during the summer months. The Columbia Network is ongoing to complete a complete theatrical producing company to the far-reaching tribute. And now, without further ado, we'd like to introduce the Mercury Theater producer, Mr. Orson Welles.
Ladies and gentlemen, what are your favorite stories? If there is one you are particularly fond of and would like to hear on the air, would you please write me about it? Next week, the Mercury Theater is going to tell you Robert Louis Stevenson's exciting yarn about pirates and the sea, Treasure Island. Until then, just in case Count Dracula has left you a little apprehensive, one word of comfort. When you go to bed tonight, don't worry. Put out the lights and go to sleep. It's all right. You can rest there easily. That's just a sound effect. There, over there in the shadow, see? Nothing at all. Nothing at all. I think it's nothing. But always remember...
Ladies and gentlemen, there are wolves. There are vampires.
Such things do exist.
This is the Columbia Broadcasting System. Today's performance has been reenacted by the RG Productions and narrated and starred Alex Hampshire, Elizabeth Havikan, Christine Hole, Diane Mahalski, Jan Mahalski, John McLaughlin, Jay Rattle, Lori Russ, and J.R. Trimark. Sound effects by Candy Helson, Alex Hampshire, Elizabeth Havikan. Musical sound effects, Morgan Hunter. Sound engineer, Rick Haggerty. Directed by Jody Diedrich. RG Productions, Nita Hunter. Thank you to Jason Remkes from Media Coordinator at Kenosha Community Media, Channel 14. And a very special thank you to not only Kemper Center for allowing us the opportunity to perform the production, but to all of you for attending this outstanding performance. Hope to see you at future productions generations. I'm your announcer, Dan Sticka.
Thank you so much for coming out to this performance. I'd like to do a couple quick call-outs. A team of 3 on the sound effects, and they were working hard tonight. Let's give them a special round. So amazing. We have 4 new members that are new to the group this year, or for this performance. So we welcome them, and thanks to all of you for coming out. See you next time.